Hello everybody, it is once again that time of the year. Actually, I'm a little bit late this year to be honest, but we're going to be talking about all of the games that I played in the last year, 2024. I'm going to be giving you guys my game of the year and giving my updated thoughts on any of the games that I did review on the channel and telling you, if they're better or they're worse, after all of this time compared to when I first played them. Because when I initially review a game, it is most definitely kind of just a final impressions, is a snapshot of my feelings right after I finished it. So things change, it's just kind of what happens. Some games get better over time the more I mull it over or the more patches that they get. And some games, they end up aging worse. And I'm like, God, why did I give that game a 6? That game was a 4. But let's get into it. There's a lot of games to talk about. Just going to be yapping for a little while here. So yeah, first game that came out in January is Persona 3 Reload. Now, it's kind of funny. Last year, I said that the Resident Evil 4 remake was, in my opinion, the best remake that's ever been made. And at the time, I thought that was true. It was definitely between the Dead Space remake and the Resident Evil 4 remake. But I have to say, new year, new remake, I actually think Persona 3 Reload is my favorite of all time remakes. I think everything that they managed to do in this game is phenomenal. The only caveat that I had with this game, the only thing I didn't like, was just the fact that you couldn't play as a chick like you could in Persona 3 Portable, but I didn't really expect them to do that. But man, they just made this game so much better. They realized that yes, guys can be friends with guys. I know, crazy concept. It doesn't mean you want to bang your friend. You can just be friends. So they actually added the ability to talk, hang out with the guys. For anybody that doesn't know, in Persona 3, the only reason you couldn't develop your social links with your guy friends as a guy was because you could really only do it with people you were going to bang. Obviously, there were some exceptions, like the fat kid and like the evil, slimy businessman. But for the most part, like, you couldn't just hang out with your friends in that game because apparently you only do that if you want to bang people. And that's why they added the ability to play a chick in the portable version, was so you could actually develop your relationship and get to know the guys on your team. And the remake totally fixes that. You can just shoot the shit with the guys, and overall, I just really enjoyed every single thing that they changed. I thought, obviously, the UI, the animations, all of that was super duper slick. And this is actually the most voice-acted Atlas game, which I was really, really happy to see. A lot of the games have a ton of reading, but I felt like with Persona 3 Reload, they really went the extra mile and voice acted significantly more, and I really, really liked that. And we'll be talking about a game a little bit later that Atlas did that kind of falls back on that. They don't have as much voice acting, but I also do really enjoy. But yeah, Persona 3 Reload, I don't remember what I gave it at the time. I want to say I gave it like a 9. Maybe I gave it a 10. After all this time, I'm going to be honest, I think the game is a 10 out of 10. I really do. I think it is the best remake that's ever been made. I cannot recommend Persona 3 Reload enough. It was really, really good. I think now we get to February, and this is when Helldivers 2 came out. And man, what a roller coaster of a launch Helldivers 2 was. It came out, and, a lot of us weren't really expecting it to do that well because Helldivers 1 was kind of a niche game. Like, I played it a bit back on, I believe it was the PS3, and it was just a twin-stick shooter kind of survivor game, horde-based, and it was fun, but, it was definitely a niche game, and wow, by swapping to third person, they managed to just catch lightning in a jar with this one, dude. The game exploded in popularity. It was absolutely everywhere online. I feel like every single person knew about Helldivers 2 at the time. It was massive. It was the type of, overnight success that any studio would dream of. And then, unfortunately, Sony had to step in, and they had to ruin it. They had the forced PSN integration, and a lot of countries, they can't have PSN accounts. So guess what happens to them? Yeah, fuck you. You got to play this game for a little while. Now you don't. And still to this day, that has not been remedied, by the way. And that really, really killed the game. for a lot of people. You know, for me personally, I've been in the PlayStation ecosystem since the PS3. Well, really, I played PlayStation 1 and 2 as a kid, but I got PSN for the first time on the PS3 because you could play online, you know, for free as compared to Xbox Live Gold on the 360. So that's when I got in. So I didn't really have a problem, you know, integrating a PSN account since I've had one for forever. But all of my friends who are PC gamers dropped the game with that controversy. They were just done with it entirely. And a lot of people were like that. The player count plummeted. Add on top of that the fact that they just started nerfing the shit out of everything. And you had probably one of the biggest success stories in all of gaming, you know, one of the biggest surprises for sure, instantly go up in flames and become a disaster. And, you know, luckily now they have remedied this a little bit. They have just rebalanced everything. I think they basically just buffed every single weapon. You know, at the Game Awards, they announced the Illuminate, the new faction. They added that kind of just as a surprise drop. And the player count went back up again. But I still don't think it's anywhere near what it would have been without all of the controversies. And I still have a bunch of friends that are just not even going to touch it because of the PSN integration. So this was a really kind of strange tale, right? Everybody loved it. Everybody hated it. And now it's kind of middle of the road, kind of liked, kind of disliked. You know, there's a lot of people still playing it now, but this was also kind of a PC specific problem because obviously if you're on PlayStation, you don't really care if you have to log into a PlayStation account, right? For me, at the time of release, I really do think Helldivers 2 was a 10 out of 10. I thought that the experience there was phenomenal. I loved the ability to grind out the super credits naturally. You didn't have to pay for the... They're not really battle passes, you know, the like content passes or whatever. You didn't have to pay real world money for it. You could just play the game, get the super credits, buy it yourself. I thought that was a super consumer friendly option. I thought that the actual combat in the game, the enemy variety, all of that was really fun. And I thought that they did a great job with the live service, you know, the events and the narratives that was unfolding as people were playing the game. And I was really into it. Unfortunately, after all of the drama, I haven't went back to it. I haven't probably touched this game since April, I would say. And, you know, even with the Illuminate in and stuff, I just haven't really found a desire to go back to the game. So I don't know exactly what I would give the game. I do hear great things, but I can't really comment on the current state of it since I haven't played it in so long. But man, what a fall from grace Helldivers 2 was. Very sad. A little bit later, a game that I feel like a lot of people completely have forgotten about, probably because of the release of Path of Exile 2 in the same space, but last Epoch. This actually came out, I believe, in February. And this, I really, really loved last Epoch, man. They did some really great things. They learned from Diablo, they learned from Path of Exile, and they kind of made this love child in the middle where you have, you know, Path of Exile, which is the super hardcore turbo virgin dweebs, and then you have Diablo, which is like the brain dead 9-to-5 dad that just wants to put in a couple hours on the couch, you know, while he's sipping a few beers. They kind of just found this like sweet little middle spot where it has some of the more advanced mechanics, especially via the crafting with the loot. And then they also have a lot of the more casual stuff though. They have a fantastic loot filter in the game. I really enjoyed the campaign, but the end game was certainly lacking. But I really, really liked Last Epoch. I still think Last Epoch is like really, really good. I still think it's probably better than Diablo 4, even after the Diablo 4 expansion, which it isn't on the list. I'm not going to really talk about the Diablo 4 expansion because it wasn't very expansive. It didn't really add too much other than the class. The story that they did was pretty lackluster and throwaway. But Last Epoch, I did want to give a mention to when I saw that it came out this year, because I did put quite a lot of hours into the game, and I really, really did like it. And especially with everybody talking about Path of Exile 2 now, which also I'm not going to talk about since it's early access, but I really did like Last Epoch. It was a solidly good time. And I still go back to it every now and then. I'm excited to see what they do with the seasons. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Now, a lot of people thought that this was going to win Game of the Year. I honestly thought that this would probably win Game of the Year. At the time that I played the game, I was probably one of the only reviewers that I saw that really didn't jive with this. I called it disappointing. I said that it was a bloated mess. And I said that it's really unfortunate that a lot of the best content in the game is hidden behind these very lackluster bloatware side quests and fetch quests and just annoying, not even interesting activities that you have to accomplish in order to see the really cool stuff in the game. Well, you know, it's been almost a year now. What are my thoughts on it? Have they changed? No, they haven't changed, man. Don't get me wrong. I'm excited to see the Tifa and Aerith mods people are going to be having on the PC release, okay? Square Enix asked people to not do it. They're going to do it. Let's be real. I'm excited to see that type of content. But in terms of the actual content of the game, yeah, no, I still feel the exact same way. I think that it was overall just a step down from, you know, Final Fantasy VII Remake, the first one. In Midgar, I thought the pacing was significantly worse. Even with just doing the main story, I found the pacing significantly worse. I thought that a lot of the side activities were just throwaway. I mean, I don't really know how anybody can even argue with that. There's literally a side activity where all you do is you press triangle 3 times on a crystal. And you have to do that for every region, like several times. The combat trials were like, okay, that's not that bad. I don't really have a problem with that. Some of them are a little annoying, but the combat trials weren't that bad. And then you have, you know, the annoying summons puzzles that you have to do, and those once again just aren't very interesting. And a lot of it just feels like you're completing your daily chores. You're going down a checklist and you're just like, okay, I did this, I did this, I did this. Okay, now I get to see the cool scene. Don't even get me started on the card game. I'm a card game enjoyer. I enjoyed the card game for a little while, but holy shit, dude, it was like Gwent times 10. It was just card game, card game, card game, card. It wouldn't end. And I had so many people coming into streams being like, is this a card? Like this game's a card game? I'm like, no, it's not a card game. It's just a mini game. And they're like, I've came into the stream like 12 times and you've been playing the card game. And I'm like, yeah, I can't really argue with that, dude. There's so much card game. It is just really unfortunate. I think they are just stretching this shit out at this point. And I just think overall, the game did not benefit at all from it being open world. I think it actually just ruined a lot of core aspects of the gameplay, the flow, and the pacing. But once again, I'm kind of in the minority here. A lot of people love Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Like I said, I think I was really one of the only reviews that I saw that was not a big fan of it. I don't remember exactly when I gave it at the time. Maybe I gave it a 6 or so. For me, I think this game is like, I think it's like a 5.5. Like, that's how it's aged for me. Visually, obviously, it's beautiful. I still love the characters. I like the new characters that were introduced. I love all of the characters. I think it's the highlight of the game. But they didn't really do as much interesting with the combat that I would have liked to see. They had some interesting little synergy abilities and team-up abilities that could help you in combat. But overall, I have forgotten a lot of the game. You know, it didn't really stick with me like Final Fantasy VII did. So it was disappointing for me, to say the least. I was not really a big fan. Dragon's Dogma 2, though. Talking about a game that's open world, I really liked Dragon's Dogma 2. And I think this is kind of the opposite. I saw a lot of people not liking Dragon's Dogma 2. I really, really enjoyed this game. You know, as a big sword enjoyer in games, this big sword was just so much fun. I didn't play any other class. I didn't have any desire to play any other class. All I wanted was my big sword, and that was it. And then that's all I used for, you know, the 60 hours or whatever that I played through. And I loved Dragon's Dogma 2. The story is garbage. Don't get me wrong. The story just throwaway garbage. But I really, really did enjoy all of the combat. And I do think that they could have had more enemy variety, most definitely. I also think more games should just have fast travel. I didn't like the whole, you have to put a crystal down to fast travel here, and then it takes a consumable in order to fast travel. At that point, you know, as a fully grown adult, it starts to feel as if you're wasting my time. And I really don't like it when games disrespect the player's time like that. It's like, yeah, you could get on a carriage and try and ride over there and have that type of fast travel. But I swear to God, 99% of the time I got in that carriage, it was getting jumped. Didn't matter if it was by a giant troll or it was by a dragon or just some goblins. That shit was getting jumped every time. Everything was going to explode. And then I was just there in the pitch black ass of night, having to run on foot as this giant fat dude with a massive sword trying to get to town. It was a pain in the ass, bro. It was just a pain in the ass. But the combat was just so much fun, man. I absolutely loved and adored the combat. I loved all of the moves, even if some of them weren't really balanced well for Dragon's Dogma 2. I had a great time. And yeah, the pawn AI was oftentimes just absolutely retarded, just like jumping to their own demise, you know. But I was like, all right, well, that sucks. Next, let's just get the next dude in here. Fuck him. I'm not going down there and saving him. Hell no. I had a really good time with Dragon's Dogma 2. I do understand it wasn't optimized well, so people with weaker rigs, they really struggled to play this game, and it apparently ran like shit on consoles. But, you know, I have a beastly PC, so I was fine. Game looked great, ran great. I didn't really have any complaints. So for this, I don't remember what I gave it. I want to say I probably gave it like an 8 or an 8.5. And for me, I still think it's like an 8.5. That's what I would give it. I think it's a great game. Definitely was worth my time. I had a fantastic time with it. The story is definitely throwaway, don't get me wrong, but man, the highlights of that combat are so fucking fun. Just like getting thrown in the air and just hitting a griffin in the fucking face with a sword that weighs like 85 pounds and it's like 10 feet long, just bong, and it's just plummets to the ground, and then you and 4 dudes just beat the shit out of this beautiful, majestic being, calling it meteors and lightning strikes, and I'm just slamming it in the head. Oh yeah, it was awesome. It was awesome. I had a great time. Really enjoyed Dragon's Dogma 2. Bit of a sleeper hit then, also in March, was Rise of the Ronin. Now, this was from the guys, I think it's Team Ninja, the guys that do Neo. And this was a very different game from them because the combat is very Neo, but it's not necessarily a Souls-like. It's kind of a Souls-like. It's open world, and it's in feudal Japan. And I really did not expect to like this game, but I really like this game. And it's only aged better because it's very different. It's more of an RPG. There's a lot of decisions to make that will curb how Japan as a country evolves. If you want to work with Americans, if you want to work with the British, if you want to further your military, if you want to further your medicine, what you're willing to do if you want to further your medicine, what type of, you know, archaic and brutal methodology you want to employ, and in order to, you know, find some of these vaccines and stuff like that. And I was just really surprised how much I liked the game. It went under a lot of people's radar because the graphics are quite bad, and a lot of people, you know, they saw a PS5 exclusive $70 game with bad graphics, and I saw this all the time. People are like, oh no, I'm not paying $70 for you know, a game with graphics that bad, which always was a little bit weird to me because nowhere in the entire history of gaming has price correlated with graphical fidelity. That has never existed a single time, but, you know, whatever. It's your money, man. Spend it how you want. You know, we all have different value propositions for our dollar. But the game, you know, I'm sure you could get it for 20, 30 bucks now, right? It's almost a year old. definitely worth your time. I really, really liked this game. I called it the sleeper hit of, 2024 at the time. And looking at all the releases that came out, I'm still standing by that, dude. I think it is a sleeper hit of 2024. Really in-depth, fun combat. A bit of a bloated and unnecessary loot system, I'll say that for sure. But I really liked the story. I love the gameplay. The exploration was quite fun. And I really liked all of the decisions and stuff that you can make. So for me, Rise of the Ronin, I think it's probably sitting at, I want to say I gave it like a 7.5. I think it's actually sitting at an 8 for me now. It's aged better in my mind. I would give it an 8 out of 10. I think it's a great game. Definitely worth your time. Stellar Blade. I'm going to say it. This is my game of the year, 2024. I'm going to say it. I bounce back and forth between this, Metaphor, ReFantazio, and Space Marine 2. Hardcore, man. And Astro Bot. But I think Stellar Blade is my game of the year. I've listened to this soundtrack. This is the soundtrack playing in the background. I've listened to this soundtrack dozens and dozens of times. Just doing shit around the house. The soundtrack is easily the best of the year. It got robbed. Absolutely robbed. How are you going to give best soundtrack to Final Fantasy VII Rebirth? It's all fucking remixes of a 96 game. That doesn't count. We all know Final Fantasy VII had a banger soundtrack back in 96. You can't just put a little wicka fresh spin on it and now it gets best soundtrack. That's horseshit. It got robbed. Stellar Blade got robbed. It should have won best soundtrack. The soundtrack is fire. Very near. This entire game is very near. And I've never really been able to get into the Nier games. I'll be honest. I bounced off hardcore of Nier Automata. I know that's heresy. The gooners around the world their ears are perking up. Huh? He didn't like Nier Automata? But 2B's thighs. Woo. Yeah. I'm sorry. I didn't like it. I bounced off of it. I didn't like how it was just like multiple games in one game in terms of like the genre. It's like, oh, it's a bullet hell. Now it's a side-scrolling platformer. Now it's a third-person action game. Now it's a 2D action game. I didn't really like it. I put more time in Nier Replicant. Also ended up bouncing off that, though. Didn't end up finishing that. I have just never really been able to get into the Nier games. But man, Stellar Blade is just a good Nier game. To me, it has a lot of the same vibes, Gal and a robot type of vibes, with very similar music playing. But this game is just always a really, really good action role-playing game. Not ARPG as in like a Diablo game, but more akin to, like a Wukong or a God of War. And I think it does it better. I think that this is a better version of Wukong. It lacks in a lot of the, very cinematic boss fights that Wukong has, but the connective tissue of the game. There's this guy, I don't remember his name. Lucas something, Lucas Smith, Lucas something. He does videos, talking about games, and I completely agreed with his takes on Wukong, where Wukong is really, really good. We'll get to Wukong shortly, but Wukong is a really good game. Don't get me wrong. I enjoyed my time with Wukong, but the story of Wukong is very weak. Honestly, just unfollowable. If if you don't know, like, the mythology, almost unfollowable. And, the level design is pretty meh in the game, and the connective tissue is really, really weak in the game. And I think Stellar Blade just does everything better. I really like the story of Stellar Blade, especially the twist at the end, which I won't ruin for anybody, but I really like the twist at the end. And just constantly trying to like put together the puzzle pieces of what happened to this world, what happened with previous humanity. I really enjoyed that. The combat is just hyper stylized and polished. It makes you feel like you're playing fucking Virgil out of Devil May Cry, man. So many times you just ding, 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 parry, and then whoosh, whooshing, and it's just like 30 fucking slices on the enemies. Are just just explode into pieces. It's sick, man. I loved Stellar Blade. I really did not expect to, because obviously there's a lot of controversy with Stellar Blade. A lot of people still see it as the Gooner game, the Coomer game. But I gotta be honest, I don't give a fuck what Eve looks like. I would still be giving this game Game of the Year if Eve was a 300-pound, hairy, greasy dude. I would, because the things I like in this game, literally none of it has to do with her being a hot chick. None of it. I really like the world. I really like the story. It's, like I said, especially the twist. The gameplay is super fun. I liked exploring, finding the secrets. All of the side quests I really enjoyed doing as well, just to get a deeper look into the world. So it's really unfortunate that Stellar Blade was largely seen as a Coomer game, as Gooner bait. Even when I try and tell people about how good Stellar Blade is, they're like, "Oh, isn't that like the porno game?" Like, I'm not gonna play that, dude. That's just embarrassing. And it sucks because Stellar Blade is a really, really fucking good game, man. For me, I think I gave this game a 9. I think this is a 10 out of 10. It's only aged better as time has went on. It has a fishing mini game, so it's basically guaranteed a 10 out of 10 for me. I love Stellar Blade. I can't wait to play it again when it comes to PC. I'm gonna buy it again. They deserve the money. I fucking love Stellar Blade. This is my Game of the Year for 2024. There was quite a few games wrestling for the spot, but man, the more and more I thought about it, the more I was like, dude, I'm just really excited to play Stellar Blade again. Once it comes to PC, I'm so excited. I loved Stellar Blade. Let's talk about a game that's was unfortunately I was very excited for, and then it was a flop. XDefiant. So this was a Call of Duty competitor, essentially, from Ubisoft. It was free to play, and the main marketing for this game was that it was a multiplayer shooter with no skill-based matchmaking. And all of us, a lot of us at least, got very excited for that. And I have to say, this game single-handedly changed my viewpoint I've held for 6 or 7 years now on skill-based matchmaking. I used to be very anti-skill-based matchmaking once Modern Warfare 2019 came out and they started really cranking up the skill-based matchmaking in Call of Duty. I started to really dislike it. And then, man, XDefiant came out. It was fun for a little bit, and then as people started to get really good at this game, I went, wait, I think I've been wrong for like 7 years now. And I was, dude. I was 100% wrong. I really liked the game at the launch, but wow, as people got better and like the movement techs and stuff emerged, it was most definitely, I'll say it, it was a skill issue on my part. I was just not as good as these people. They're like fucking just sniffing a line of Adderall and just gaming for 10 hours, like just owning. And yeah, this game's, like I said, it single-handedly changed my mind on skill-based matchmaking. I'm now pro skill-based matchmaking. This game has now, been confirmed that this is the final season. It's going to be closed. They're closing down the servers and everything. I don't know if people got their money back, if they spent money. I don't know how any of that is working, but definitely a bit of a flop. And it just goes to show that even if it seems like every single person online agrees with something, right? It seemed like every single person online hated skill-based matchmaking. Everybody wanted a game with no skill-based matchmaking. Sometimes us as the gamers, we just don't know shit, man. And that could be really hard to admit for some people. I have no problem admitting when I'm wrong, and boy, oh boy, was I wrong. I don't know if, Call of Duty has the exact formula right, or Apex, or any of these games. Obviously they could tweak the formula just right, but man, coming home from a 9 to 5, logging on to play a couple matches, and then just having the sweatiest of turbo dweebs just nay all over you, 360 quick scoping you. Yeah, Yeah, I uninstalled XDefiant. Skill issue. I know, 100%. Put me back in the lobbies with people with jobs, okay? Get me out of the unemployment line. Get me back in with the people that have lives and jobs, please. After that was Shadow of the Erdtree. Now, this isn't a game. Elden Ring, Shadow of the Erdtree. It's a DLC, but it was too big to not talk about. So let's chat for a moment about Shadow of the Erdtree. I think Shadow of the Erdtree is quite good. I don't think it's FromSoft's best DLC, even if it is their biggest DLC. I don't think it's their best. I still think Bloodborne DLC clears pretty easily. You know, the Old Hunters DLC. I still think that some of the DLC for Dark Souls 3 clears Shadow of the Erdtree. But Shadow of the Erdtree is really good. It is very good. I'm not the biggest fan of how they did the difficulty with the Erdtree. I think that's what it was, like the Erdtree blessings. And they released the game and it was literally just too hard. It was kind of funny. It was one of those things where ahead of time, journalists were allowed to release their reviews for the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC. And there was one reviewer that said it was too hard. And everyone online dogpiled that guy. Oh, what a shitter. What a piece of garbage. How dare he? What a fucking loser. It's skill issue, skill issue. Fast forward a couple days. DLC comes out. All of the fucking reviews on Steam, negative, it's too hard. You could not write something fucking funnier, bro. It was so funny. It's like everybody that was online shitting on this journalist for saying it was too hard now just took to the reviews and they were 100% agreeing with the guy in spades. And they had to nerf the DLC. They nerfed several of the bosses. They buffed the Erdtree blessings, like how much percent of you know, defenses and damage that you got with them. They just overall made it significantly easier to accomplish. And yeah, it was hard, bro, especially that first day or two. It was pretty difficult, and I think it just felt really bad going from being overpowered fighting godlike beings in the base game to coming into the DLC and getting two-tapped by, you know, regular enemies, despite having, like, maximum, like, health and defensive charms and heavy armor, just getting, like, two-tapped from these, like, fucking peasants. It felt really, really bad. But, you know, once you kind of learned to get those Erdtree blessings, you learned where they were. I think it was definitely a lot better. I really like a lot of the bosses in Shadow of the Erdtree. It does suffer from the same issue that the base game of Elden Ring suffers from, which is reusing assets. There's a lot of reusing of assets in the DLC, a lot of reusing of, you know, enemies, and overall, I enjoyed my time with Shadow of the Erdtree, but one thing I didn't enjoy is the final boss. If you haven't had the final boss of Shadow of the Erdtree spoiled for you yet, I'll put up my hand as I talk about spoilers. Okay, I'll put down my hand when I'm done talking about it. Okay, so you can skip ahead or just mute or whatever. Fuck Consort Radon. Fuck that guy. Fuck that piece of shit. Yeah. Fuck that boss, bro. That boss is ass. I stand by it. I beat him with only my fists, no summons, no magic or anything, just to prove a point because people said it was a skill issue when I was talking about how he sucked. So I replayed the game, no summons, no magic, just fists, just to prove a point. That fight sucks ass. I fucking hate that fight. The visibility is terrible. The frame rate goes to shit, even on a turbo PC. I think they fixed that probably, but God help you if you're on console. But the visibility is terrible in that second phase. First phase is fine. Second phase, just terrible. I have all like 3 hours of me bashing my head against that wall on the channel. It was pain, dude. It was literally pain. Easily the hardest fight I've ever done in a video game, and it was terrible. I hate the boss fight. I don't like it. I just don't like the fact that it was Radon in the first place. I would have loved to see somebody else, but yeah, just Fuck that boss fight. I still don't like the boss fight. Those moves and the timings for dodging will probably be burned into my hippocampus until the end of time. I will be 85 years old in the hospital bed being like, roll, 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 attack, attack, roll. Oh, run, 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 roll, roll. Like, I will still have those timings etched into my brain until the end of time because of my agony fighting that piece of shit. I hate that guy. Okay, spoilers over. Overall, though, I did really enjoy the DLC. I thought Shadow of the Erdtree was a good time. I thought it was very silly to even put it up against Game of the Year. For Game of the Year, I thought it was silly. It doesn't compete. It's not even the best FromSoft DLC. It might be top 3. But yeah, it was just silly even seeing it as possible Game of the Year. Because it's not even a game, brother. It's a DLC. But also because it's not even that good. It is good. It is good. But it's not Game of the Year good, you know? It's not like Metaphor, ReFantazio, you know, any of those other games that were up there, Astro Bot good. It wasn't that good. So for me, I think when I played it, I gave it like a 7.5. I think it's still like a 7.5. I think it's a good time. I think it's a solid time. If you like Elden Ring, you'll like it. It suffers from a lot of empty space in some points of the map. It suffers from reusing fights. The big fire colossal dudes are just not fun to fight. They're just boring, not fun to fight. Unfortunately, you have to in order to get the physic mixes. But yeah, overall, I thought it was pretty good. I'm very excited to see what they do with, you know, Elden Ring Night Rain, I think it's called, something like that. I'm excited to see what that's going to be. Me and the boys will be hitting that up. I think it's like a co-op roguelike, so we'll see. Flintlock was the next game. Flintlock Siege of Dawn. I was very, very excited for this game going into it, just because all the gameplay and stuff that I saw about it just looked really cool. It was like a Souls-like, but it had like the combo percentage meter from like a Devil May Cry game. And as you went unhit and you used diverse moves and combo structure and stuff like that, it was going to build up this multiplier for your souls gained. And then you could choose to, you know, cash it out. But if you get hit, you lose it all, right? Like a high risk, high reward. And I thought that was just a really cool mechanic I had never really seen in a Souls-like. Unfortunately, the game was just not very good. It was profoundly mid. It really was disappointing for me. There's not really too much to say here. I did think that the main chick did a good job voice acting. I wasn't at all on board with the, oh my god, game bad because Sweet Baby Incorporated. Game bad because of DEI. I didn't give a shit about any of that stuff. I never do. But the game just wasn't good. Like, to take all of that stuff out, it could be the hottest white chick ever put in a video game. And Sweet Baby couldn't be attached to it at all. The game was just not very good, man. It was a bit unfortunate. I think I gave it a 6 when I reviewed it. Thinking about it now, I think it's definitely just a 5. I think it's right down the middle, just 5 average mid game. It had some cool mechanics, but unfortunately, the story was just very lackluster. Almost no bosses in a Souls-like, which is a major L. That's usually the highlight of those games. And no big sword. No big sword. Big L there. Wukong. Now, this was a big one. This was a lot of people's game of the year. Blackmyth Wukong. I was on... it was kind of like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth for this one. I was not on the side of loving Wukong. I thought Wukong combat got very stale by the end of the game. You were repeating a lot of the same shit that you've done like the entire game, and for me, it got old fast. Yes, there's a metric ass ton of bosses in the game. I think there's like 89 bosses in Wukong. It's insane. It's essentially a boss rush game. But here's the thing. It's not a boss rush game. It would be better if it was a boss rush game. If it was just boss fight, boss fight, boss fight, boss fight, I would have actually liked the game more. But unfortunately, they put in these very, very dated levels for you to explore and normal enemies and stuff for you to fight to make it more akin to like, you know, a normal Souls-like. And I just thought the level design was bad. Tons of invisible walls. Like, I don't think I've seen more invisible walls in a game in like over a decade. It felt like I was playing a PS2 game at times with how many just invisible walls were everywhere in Wukong. And none of like the normal enemies were very fun to fight either. Like, the strong suit of the game was most definitely all of the boss fights. And the boss fights are, for the most part, fantastic, especially visually. Like, if you don't play this game and you watch this game, I can see how a lot of people could be like, this is 10 out of 10. But when you actually play the game, I just found the combat just hyper repetitive. I wasn't the biggest fan of it. And the story is just unintelligible. Like, literally unintelligible. I wanted it to make sense, and it just, like, the overarching story I understood, sure. But, like, to give you examples, you end chapter 1 off, and you're in a forest, and you just fought this guy, and he's like a Buddhist, and you understand his story. It makes sense. Literally, the next scene, you are full of arrows in a desert. And there's a dude without a head playing fucking banjo or something. And like magically saves you. And it's like, what the fuck happened? Like, what? How did I get from fighting the dude at the end of the forest area to now I'm full of arrows and some fucking headless banjo dude is playing to me? Like, what are we talking about? How did this happen? There's literally no explanation. There's no lore that you can find that explains it. There's no popping open the menu and reading that. Nothing explains it. And then this happens repeatedly through the game. You beat chapter 2. Like I said, you're in a desert. You just fight this dude. He makes a bunch of, you know, crazy tornadoes and stuff. Really cool boss fight. You finally beat him. Next thing you know, it pans in on a statue, like a giant statue, in a snowy area, and Wukong just pops out of the statue. What? Why is he in the statue? How did he get to the statue? Why is he in a snowy area now? What the fuck is happening? Like, there's no continuity in this game. And I have no doubt, maybe if you're Chinese, or if you're like really into Chinese mythology, you're like the 2 people in the rest of the world that is into Chinese mythology or something. Maybe there's some myth about, oh yes, Wukong fought a tornado man and then he got sucked into a statue in the snow or something. Like, maybe it makes sense if you know the mythology. But as a dude that doesn't know anything about the Wukong mythology, this shit made literally 0 sense. I also just thought the characters weren't that interesting. The pig guy wasn't that interesting to me. I found it kind of annoying, to be honest. I was happy when I got to beat his ass. And yeah, just overall, I think Wukong, when Wukong is great, it is 10 out of 10 great. It is phenomenal. Like, when you're doing some of those boss fights, they're so cinematic. They're literally best in class. Some of the best, I would say, ever put into a video game. And it is clear that it was such a labor of love. There's so much attention to detail. Like I said, with the mythology, it seems like they're very, you know, true to that. But unfortunately, it just lacks in everywhere else for me. And so I had a good enough time with Wukong. I think I gave it a 7.5 out of 10. And thinking about it now, I'd agree. I think it's a 7.5. I don't think I'd drop it down to a 7. Just because then you start to get into some territory of some games that I do think are like quite a bit worse. But overall, I think Wukong was a fun time. It was a good time. Stellar Blade is just a much, much better game overall. Just rounded out, just a better story, better exploration, better side content, better combat. I enjoyed Stellar Blade significantly more, and I think the God of War games are significantly better in all of those categories as well. So, you know, it's a fun action game. I just don't think it competes with other games that are like the top tier in its category. Next, talk about doesn't compete in games of its category. Concord. Ooh, baby. Yes, I was one of the only people that bought and played Concord. Yep, I was. And let me tell you, it actually wasn't that bad. It wasn't that bad. It wasn't like the worst game I've ever played. But I did play the game, you know, I tried all the characters, and I gotta say, it just felt like, like it shouldn't exist. Like, it didn't have the character of Overwatch at all. It didn't even have the character of Paladins. The time to kill was very, very long on almost all of the characters. The balancing was a bit out of whack. There wasn't like a roll queue or anything like that, so most of the time you just had dudes being retards. And it wasn't like very hardcore objective focused. They had like domination and team deathmatch and stuff, which was just, and they even had a search and destroy mode, which was just so weird to me to have in a hero shoot. Can you imagine Overwatch with a search and destroy mode? Like, you die once, you're done. Like, it was just weird, man. It didn't even feel like it belonged in the genre. They knew what they were doing. And I will say, like, the secret level episode of Concord, I think it was actually really good. I think the world of Concord seemed really interesting, and I would have been interested in, like, a single-player story game in the world of Concord. Now, don't get me started on the character design. It's ass. It is, it is undiluted, scientifically pure ass. Like, they have found the formula for just pure ass. It is so bad. The character designs are horrendous in Concord, but the actual world did seem pretty interesting. It did feel like kind of knock off Guardians of the Galaxy, but like I said, I enjoyed the secret level episode. I thought it was pretty good, but wow, they had such a fumble. And this is the type of fumble that's like Seahawks in the Super Bowl type of fumble, like the type of fumble that will be legendary. People will know Concord probably until the end of video gaming as we know it. I mean, it is that monumental of a failure. We have experienced history in the making. We have not seen a video game failure the likes of Concord since E.T. And if you know anything about E.T., that almost single-handedly killed video gaming as an entire industry. So Concord wasn't quite as bad as E.T., but this is like a monumental failure on all fronts. It is insane. And like I said, the game actually wasn't that bad. It just wasn't good. I think I gave it a 6 out of 10, like a little bit above average. Thinking about it now, obviously it's not like I can go back and play it, right? It's gone. But thinking about it now, I think it was probably like a 4. I think it was a bit below average for the, I could be wrong. Maybe I didn't give it a 6, but I think looking at it now, I think it was like a 4. It was like below average. Concord definitely wasn't good, but it's kind of funny now thinking about Concord because we have Marvel Rivals, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But Marvel Rivals is also an Overwatch competitor, and it's just way, way better. In my opinion, it's better than Overwatch. And, you know, it came out free to play, like 30-something characters, all these team-ups, destructible environments. Like, it actually brought a lot of new and interesting things to the genre. And I think that that's ultimately what you have to do. If you're trying to get into a developed genre, you have to do something different. And you most definitely cannot release as a $40 game when you're competing against a bunch of free-to-play games. I don't know what they were thinking with Concord. Absolutely just dead on arrival. I'll be honest, still to this day, I'm surprised they just closed the servers after 2 weeks and refunded everyone. I think that was crazy. I think maybe they could have gotten something rolling a little bit if they just went free to play and kind of pushed it harder. But ultimately now, having, you know, hindsight being 2020, I think we can all agree, even if it managed to weasel along a little bit as a free-to-play title, Marvel Rivals would have killed it. 100%. Marvel Rivals would have absolutely decimated it anyway, so it would have died anyway. But man, maybe they could have recouped a little bit of the $400 million. Oosh. That's rough. I think it was 400 million. Could be more. But yeah, we literally witnessed in 2024 a historic failure, the likes of which we may never see again. And I think that's awesome. I think that's great. Speaking of a pretty big failure, Star Wars Outlaws. Wow, 2 stinkers back to back, eh? No, I don't think Star Wars Outlaws was as bad as everybody said it was. I mean, to be fair, most people that were hating on Outlaws didn't play it. Star Wars Outlaws is not like a good game by any means. I don't think it's a great game, but it does have some redeeming things that I found pretty enjoyable. I really liked the bounty hunter droid. I thought he was really fucking cool. He was sick. Like, that is like prime Star Wars for me, is like cool bounty hunters. And that cool bounty hunter drone was just like everything I want out of that character archetype. I really liked Nyx, I think its name was, the little Momo pet. I thought Nyx was super duper cute. All of this like secrets that you can have where you get him food and stuff, you eat food with him, I thought it was adorable. Running through like the little playground areas with him, I thought was super cute. It had some redeeming qualities. I think it has one of the best Vader scenes ever. Like, the Vader scene in Star Wars Outlaws is insane. If you haven't seen it, highly recommend. Really, really fucking cool, dude. And I thought it was just kind of really interesting to see Vader from the perspective of just this like normal bitch, you know, like she's just this normal chick out in the universe of Star Wars. She doesn't have the Force. She doesn't even know about the Force. And then you just see Vader fucking shatter this glass and fucking and just all these glasses shards, you know, fucking pointing at the person. I thought it was such a cool scene, man. Overall, Outlaws, not a great game by any means, but it did have some redeeming points to it. Very, very buggy, though. You know, I think I gave it a 4 because of the bugs, but I said if they fix all the bugs and stuff, it could be at a 6. I still agree with that. I don't know where they're at with fixing the bugs, you know. I haven't went back to it since beating it, but I still think, like, for what I paid, which I think I paid like 10 bucks because I just played it on the Ubisoft Connect, I had a good enough time with it. I didn't think it was a terrible time. I thought the ship combat was also pretty fun. But yeah, that was Star Wars Outlaws. A lot of people, you know, saying it was the worst game of the year. I don't agree. I think there was some more stinkers. You know, like I said, Concord is a historic failure, the likes of which they'll be talking about for decades to come. I think Concord probably takes that spot a little bit better than a pretty mid Star Wars game. Another disappointment. Jesus, we have 3 back-to-back. The casting of Frank Stone. I was very excited for this game. I was so excited because I really liked the Dead by Daylight lore. I used to be very big into Dead by Daylight. You know, grinding killer. I got to rank 1 killer. I really enjoyed Dead by Daylight, and I really liked the lore of Dead by Daylight. And then when I found out that the guys that did Until Dawn, The Quarry, the Dark Picture Anthology, right? When those guys were going to do a single-player horror game in the Dead by Daylight world, I was very excited. That's perfectly up my alley. You know, I like DBD lore. I love the Dark Picture games. Until Dawn, I love those games. I don't know how they messed this up, bro. This was so disappointing. This is so I was just so disappointed. This game sucks. This game just sucks. It's aged worse since I reviewed it. I despise this game. I hate it. It was so disappointing, man. It was just fucking boring. It was boring. You have really cool lore with Dead by Daylight. It's supposed to be a horror game. I was bored out of my mind. And on top of that, I'm pretty sure it was a full price game. And it was like super short. It was like 7 hours or something. Like, I played the entire thing in one stream. It was very, very short. Your decisions didn't feel like they mattered. And they try and build up like this whole multiverse storyline in like 7 hours. That doesn't work, bro. You can't get into like the concept of multiverses and all the different parallel realities and stuff like that, and how that has an impact on like the core universe. You can't do that in 7 hours while also introducing all the characters and also introducing, you know, the bad guy, and the bad guy sucked. He's like, the game is called The Casting of Frank Stone. I think Frank Stone is in the game for 20 minutes. Like, he's barely in the fucking game. Most of it is you're just playing as some kids trying to make a movie. Like, that is the vast majority of the game, is you're walking around this rich bitch's mansion just being like, wow, this bitch is kind of crazy. She's got some weird stuff here. Not even scary. It's like, ooh, she's into dollhouses and VHS. It's like, okay. And then the other half of the game, you're just playing as kids trying to make a movie. And it's like, that could be cool because obviously, like, we have some really good horror movies that take inspiration from that. Like, It is just at its foundation a bunch of, you know, kids, and that's obviously a fantastic horror story. So you think like, okay, maybe they'll get to something. They don't. It's just fucking lame. It's boring. It's disappointing. I hate this game. I don't even want to think about this game. It pisses me off. I don't know what I gave it. I think I gave it a 3. I agree. It's a 3. Fuck this game. I had some people telling me that this game was good. My brother in Christ, you're just addicted to Dead by Daylight or something, man. That's the only way I can accept anyone liking this game, is if you are just on that DBDD hardcore. You know what I'm saying, brother? And you're just gonna slurp up literally everything that they release. That's the only way I can see anybody actually liking this game. But you know what game everybody will like? Astro Bot. Astro Bot, baby. Astro Bot came out, and I don't like platformers. I don't have a lot of nostalgia for a lot of PlayStation stuff. But holy shit, this game is good. I think Astro Bot, absolutely. It's not my game of the year, but I understand giving game of the year to Astro Bot. Astro Bot is so good. And, you know, I know from the outside, a lot of people that didn't play the game, they go, oh, it looks like a baby game. It looks like a little baby game, and you're just this cute little robot. And I'm like, listen, dude, not every game has to be cock and ball torture Souls-like. Not every game has to be turbo realism graphics. Not every game has to have Last of Us types of narratives and motion capture performances. Video games back in the day, when I grew up, you know what they were? They were things you did for fun. That's it. And that's what Astro Bot is, and it does it perfectly. It is just a fun video game. That's it, man. You boot up Astro Bot, and you're gonna have fun. And I don't know a single person that has hated on Astro Bot and then played Astro Bot and been like, yeah, no, Astro Bot's bad. I don't know that person. I don't think that person can exist. Like, you're lying if you're that person. It is so polished. They do such a great job of adding just multiple mechanics. Every single level feels very different from one another. Whereas if it's a setting, then it's the mechanic. It's just like, some of the mechanics are so cool, man. Like the casino level, right? You're just this little guy, and you're in a casino, and you get a watch, and or maybe it's a backpack, and it lets you stop or slow time. Like slow time to almost stop level. And you gotta play with the slots and then cause a jackpot. So the coins come out, freeze time, and jump on the coins. And there's just so many like really cool mechanics in every single level. And then you top that off with a boss fight that is, and I mean this genuinely, I've played probably 1,000 games, maybe more. I've played more games than 99.99% of human beings out there. I think Astro Bot's final boss is easily in the top 5 best bosses ever put into a video game ever. Really just take a moment to ruminate on that statement. It is so good. It perfectly encapsulates your entire experience through the game. It perfectly utilizes in a fun and new, but intuitive way all of the mechanics that you've used throughout the entire game, and it is just so extremely good. It's insane how good Astro Bot is. And once again, I don't like platformers. I'm not saying this out of nostalgia for some monkey catching game that I never played, okay? I don't even know what it's called, right? I'm just saying this game is insanely good. My only complaint with the game, which does still stand, is that the settings is very lackluster. You can't change your sensitivity and you can't change the audio settings. That's my only complaint with the game, and it unfortunately still stands. This is like a 9.5 out of 10 for me. And if you don't care about that stuff, which most people probably don't, then it's a 10 out of 10. I think Astro Bot is insanely good. It was so funny to see Asmongold and Asmongold's community hating on Astro Bot, being so mad, just mauling at the fact that Astro Bot won Game of the Year, and then to watch him play it. And it was like a child on Christmas morning, dude. I have followed Asmongold since he made exclusively WoW content, and I have never seen this man have that childlike wonder on his face like when he played Astro Bot. And you go down to the comments on any of those videos, I encourage you to. I encourage you to watch it. It's truly a beautiful thing. It's like when the Grinch found out the beauty of Christmas. You have this turbo cynical individual that was just hating on this thing. And now he's found the euphoric happiness of what just a good, fun game is. And all of the comments on those videos are just like, wow, I've never seen Asmongold this happy. I've never seen him this full of joy. That's the power of Astro Bot, man. Even the biggest cynics, their cold, encrusted hearts are thawed by the beauty of Astro Bot. It's so good. Astro Bot is incredible. It's not my game of the year, but boy, oh boy, it was fighting with Stellar Blade hardcore for my game of the year. I love Astro Bot. I cannot speak its praises enough. Such a good game. So good. I still have it. You know, most of the time I play those games, like PS5 exclusives, I play them and then I sell them. I kept Astro Bot because it was just so good. I was like, I'm going to want to come back. Like, if I just need a smile, I'm going to come back to Astro Bot. And it's just so good. The music, the level design, every single thing about that game is so good. So close to my game of the year. Speaking of close to my game of the year, Space Marines 2. I am not a Warhammer Turbo Virgin super nerd, even though I know I do fit the phenotype. I am actually not. I'm not really into Warhammer stuff. I have enjoyed some of the Warhammer games that I've played, but I've never really watched anything or read anything about Warhammer or played the, I think it's a board game of Warhammer or whatever with the like figures and stuff. I've never done any of that. Never really been into it. But my God, did Space Marines 2 make me want to get into it. Space Marines 2 is so fucking good, man. It is such a good introduction for people like me that don't really know anything about the Space Marine universe or Warhammer universe. And the gameplay is just violent, brutal, just no mercy, ass to gas fun. It is so good. It reminds me 100% of Gears of War. Very, very similar. You just got these giant brolic brothers, and they're all about brotherhood. And they're just fucking, yeah, brother, hell yeah, let's go take down those fucking heretics. And they're just owning. They're just killing shit, and it looks sick, and the music is awesome, and there's a little bit of turmoil, you know, in the between the bros, but you know the bros are gonna make up. You know the bros are gonna be back in it, beating the shit out of Chaos or Tyranids or whatever the hell, Necrons, who cares? And it's great. It really did take me back to the Gears of War days. It's even structured like an old game where they have the campaign, which I thought was phenomenal. I think the campaign is a 10 out of 10. And then they had the PvE, like the co-op, which I also loved. I thought that was a 10 out of 10. And then they have the PvP, which I didn't really like. I didn't think the PvP was that good. I'll be entirely honest. I kind of bounced off of it. Maybe it's because I found it too easy. I was just owning every single game. I was dominating, playing sniper. I was just shitting all over the entire lobby. Had multiple like 20 plus kill games. Just, I don't know. I didn't really feel like challenged at all. I thought it was very easy, and it didn't really have the progression that I typically want to see out of a PvP game. So I don't know. It didn't have a lot of levels, but the PvP, you know, I'd probably give that like a 6 out of 10. Like it's maybe a 5 or a 6 out of 10. I thought it was like pretty average, maybe a little bit above average, but man, the PvE and the campaign go so hard in this game. They're so fun. I love what they decided to do with the PvE with making it so it was the other team going on missions while Titus was doing his missions in the campaign. So you kind of like, after you play the campaign, you have a good insight into what they're doing in the PvE. It seems like they're supporting it fantastically. For me, this was the better Helldivers. Like, I prefer this game over Helldivers 2. I love the armor customization. I thought that was super in-depth and really cool. I liked the progression. I felt like Helldivers didn't really have that progression for me. It didn't have the upgrading of your weapons and kind of the skill tree and stuff like that for the classes. So for me, I just like Space Marines 2 more than Helldivers. But because the PvE was a little lackluster, that's why I bumped it down a little bit, because that is a core facet of the game. And also the PvE only had 6 missions on launch, which I do feel like is a little bit lackluster as well. So I want to say I gave the game like a 9. I still stand by that. I think it's a 9. I think as they add more and more content though, and if they manage to get the PvP like better, which is more content and faster progression, because the progression was really slow in the PvP, I think it could definitely approach a 10. But still, I absolutely love Space Marines 2, and as somebody that's not even into Warhammer, it made me into Warhammer. It made me very interested, and I was booting up some of those YouTube videos, you know, with the people talking in the very silly, deep voices.
It is the 41st millennium. Mankind knows only war. The Space Wolves are a bunch of turbo furries.
Or whatever, you know. I was really into all of the all those lore videos and stuff. It actually got me interested in it. So Space Marines 2 was great. Silent Hill 2 came out shortly after, and man, this is a complicated one because it is really good, but it's just too long. It is, that's the main problem with Silent Hill 2, is that it's just bloated, man. When your original game that you're remaking is 6 to 8 hours, your remake should not be 16 to 18 hours. It's just too bloated for me. And they don't do a good job of really diversifying the combat scenarios, the gear that you're utilizing in those combat scenarios. You know, they're not giving you like frequent upgrades or anything like that. And so for me, Silent Hill 2, while it does boast beautiful visuals and genuinely probably some of the best audio design I've ever heard in a video game, like the audio is insane in Silent Hill 2. Ultimately, there was a really long chunk in the middle of the game and towards the end of the game where I just felt like I was going through the motions. Like I was like, okay, it's about to be over. Oh, it's not over. It's about to be over. It's not over. Surely now it's over. Okay, it's still not over. And then it had like 4 hours left. It just went a little too long for me. Or a lot too long for me. And this is the thing about horror, right? Horror games cannot be long games. This is why I always say I push back against the ideology of, oh, I want to get an hour of gameplay for every $1 I spend. I always push back against that because of horror games. if you have a 70-hour horror game, it's shit. It doesn't exist. Maybe you can get 70 hours through replays of something like a Resident Evil 4, but it's shit. You cannot have a long horror game because as horror goes on and goes on and goes on, it's a thin line between when stuff remains scary and now it starts to get annoying. And survival horror is my favorite genre. I absolutely love it. I wish we got more great games in it, but unfortunately 16 to 18 hours is just a bit too long for the enemy types that they have in Silent Hill 2, the actual scares of Silent Hill 2, the weapons that they give you in Silent Hill 2. They just don't do a good job at diversifying that content and making it feel fresh throughout the game. And so it starts to get redundant and then it starts to get annoying. And add on top of that, the fact that there's like, I think there's 3 endings you can get at the start. And then there's like 7 or 8 extra endings that you can only get on New Game Plus. And I played through the game like 3 or 4 extra times after I beat it, just because I love survival horror. And even though it wasn't very, like, I didn't really enjoy my time, I wanted to see the other endings. They suck. So many of the endings suck. They're just like really bad. It's like barely anything. There's a couple good endings that are good for like memes and funny reasons, but like all of the serious endings just suck. And it's like, oh, I did all this work getting all this cultist stuff. You think, oh man, I'm gonna bring my wife back to life. My wife, sorry, just a compulsion. You're like, oh, I'm gonna bring my wife back to life. This is gonna be such a cool ending. It's literally just you paddling the boat into the water, being like, I'm gonna do something about this. You're not gonna be dead forever, and that's it. Like a little 6-second thing. I was like, what? I just replayed the whole fucking game and found these like hidden collectibles and stuff for this? What the fuck? So yeah, Silent Hill 2 for me. While it does boast insane visuals and, like I said, some of the best audio I've ever heard in a video game, I think most people that are glazing this game probably have a lot of nostalgia for the franchise, for the series. And as somebody that this was their first Silent Hill game ever, I have no nostalgia, no bias whatsoever. I was a little bit disappointed. Like, it was cool to see Silent Hill finally after it's been, you know, hyped up for me. Like I said, I love survival horror, and if you love survival horror, you're always going to have people telling you to play Silent Hill. But man, I think I should have just played the classic, because this was not it. You know what is it, though? Metaphor ReFantazio. ReFantazio. However you say it. Who gives a shit? Persona 6. Yeah, this game is great. This game is absolutely great. IGN gave it Game of the Year, which I know most of us don't give a shit about IGN, but you know, a lot of people's Game of the Year. I unfortunately still have not beaten it. I'm like 50 hours in. It's like an 85-hour game. I'm like 50 or 55 hours in, something like that. I have not beaten it. From what I've played of the game, I can easily see how it would be someone's Game of the Year. This is probably a perfect JRPG. It's really, really good. The music is phenomenal. Probably the second best soundtrack of the year, in my opinion. Very, very good. When you boot it up, it's like, shit gets you hype, bro. You're like, yeah, let's go, baby. Let's become the king. It gets me hype. I think the soundtrack is fucking fire. Not as good as Stellar Blade, but it's very, very, very good. They've done a lot of really cool things with the gameplay. Now, instead of the protagonist being the only one that can swap personas, you can swap the entire team's personas. So that's very, very nice. They're not personas anymore. Even though they are. Let's be honest, they are. I really like the world, though. This like medieval fantasy. it's a lot darker than I thought it would be. You know, you see like the aesthetic and a lot of these like anime horseshit games. You're like, okay, it's gonna be like, wow, we did it through the power of friendship. Yay! Not this game. Nah, this game is like, oh yeah, your friend just got brutally fucking killed right in front of you because you weren't good enough. Get better, loser. And I think that's awesome. I think it's great. I love it. I thought it was great. Just tons of racism. I love that. Don't clip that out of context. I love it in like a fantasy world because it makes it feel more real. You know, like you play Baldur's Gate and it's like, ooh, the drow. You know, you're playing Baldur's Gate 3, they're like, ooh, the drow. Ooh, those are the nasty elves. Ugh. You know, nobody trusts you, nobody likes you. There's like that level of racism. I like that in a fantasy world because it does lend to the realism. If we're racist towards each other and the only thing changing is the color of our fucking skin, brother, you really think we wouldn't be like super omega racist if some motherfuckers had horns and some had ears and some were furries? Oh, of course we would be. We would be like hyper racist. And this game deals with that. Metaphor ReFantazio, I mean, that is probably the core of the game, is racism bad and trying to eliminate racism. And they don't really pull the punches, man. They have full-on slavery. They have full-on executions of the lesser races. And I really, really like everything I've played with Metaphor. They've made it so if you're higher level than your opponents, you don't have to enter the turn-based combat. You can just go up, beat the shit out of them, jump them in the alley, just kick them in the ribs. Real nice and quick. You don't have to get into the whole that you normally do in JRPGs. And yeah, overall, I really, really like Metaphor. I just can't really consider it for my game of the year because I haven't beaten it. I don't think that's fair. I wouldn't be surprised if the game continues with the quality level that I've seen so far in 50 hours, if it ends up being my game of the year after I beat it. But unfortunately, I just have not really had the time. You know, it's not a game that I can really stream because of the nature of it. It's a very slow-paced, reading-heavy game. I tried streaming it a few times. The streams just didn't do very well, and I completely understand why. It's not a game that's very great for streaming. So, you know, I have to play it in my off time, and in my off time, I'm streaming. So there's not really too much overlap there for me to play the game, but man, is it good. One game I did stream, and it was entirely better because I streamed it, though, was A Quiet Place. This was really surprising for me. A Quiet Place was really fun, dude. If you guys, you know, missed those streams, I feel bad for you because those are probably my most fun streams I've had in years. It was so extremely fun. The game listens to your microphone. People in chat trying to make me laugh and shit. Frequently they did. And then I let out a little, you know, a little snort. And then I'm just brutally mauled by the monster. Oh, man. It was so much fun to play through. I don't know how fun this game would be if you're just, like, alone in your room playing it. But, man, this was one of my most fun gaming experiences in the past couple years streaming it. It was absolutely great. The game itself, it's pretty good. It's not bad at all. It's a pretty good, like, survival horror. They do a good job of, like, inventory management and stuff like that. Your character is horribly asthmatic, and that is just so annoying. Like, Jesus Christ, I've met people that have smoked 10 packs of cigarettes a day for 50 years. They can breathe better than this bitch. And you know, you're huffing on inhalers and stuff. The moment this monster even comes next to you, you're sounding like Vader, fucking just dying because of that. But it does do a great job as a result of getting you to, you know, care about your resources, naturally wanting to explore so you can find more, you know, medicine for your asthma and stuff like that. And overall, I think the game was very fun. Hopefully they fixed a lot of the bugs. It was very, very buggy on launch. Hopefully they fixed the bugs, but I think I gave this game like a 7. A 7, maybe a 6 because of the bugs. But I think for me, probably because the streaming was so fun, I would bump it up to an 8 if the bugs are fixed. I just had a great time streaming this game, man. It was so fun. Black Ops 6 came out. Everybody was saying, "Oh my God, this is just the best Call of Duty. It's been the best Call of Duty, you know, since Modern Warfare 2019." Everyone glazing it. Well, it's been a couple months now, and all I see from the Call of Duty community is that they fucking hate the game now. So I don't really know what happened, but something happened to where this went from literally the most successful Call of Duty, I think, of all time, they said. It was the best-selling, the most concurrent players of all time in all of Call of Duty, to now all I see is people hate this Call of Duty. I don't really know what happened, but, you know, Call of Duty for me is absolutely one of those games. It's fun for like 2 weeks, 3 weeks maybe, when it comes out. You play the campaign, you play the zombies, you play some of the multiplayer, and then you're like, okay, I'm good for the year. You know, that's how Call of Duty is for me. So Black Ops 6 did a great job just being that. Luckily, since it's on Game Pass, that was really, really nice. Because I almost always just have Game Pass because there's so many great, you know, day ones on there. So, you know, I didn't really feel like I lost anything. I had a good time with Black Ops 6. I really liked the campaign. I thought that was surprisingly good, especially the zombies level in the campaign. I really, really vibed with that. But I am most definitely a filthy casual when it comes to Call of Duty. I'm not out there fucking, I need to get my Neural Nebula Omega camo. I need to get 75 direct impacts with the RPG. You know, I'm not one of those guys. I'm gonna be honest. I don't give a fuck what little sprinkles go on my gun or what metal my gun is made out of. I don't need the gold gun or the diamond gun or whatever. Platinum. I don't even know what they're doing. I think they had obsidian one year. I don't care. I don't give a fuck what's on my gun, bro. I'm gonna shoot some people for a little while and then, you know, test out a few of the guns, play a few of the maps and modes, and then I'm good. You know, I'm a filthy casual in that regard. So I'm not really the best authority for Black Ops 6, but I had a good time with it. I enjoyed the zombies from what I played. It got me like tons of views. Those streams were very, very popular, so that was cool. I think I made like 500, 600 bucks just off of playing Black Ops 6. So that was cool. But, you know, other than that, it was fun enough. I don't really have too much to say about it other than that. And apparently it's terrible now. Speaking of things that are terrible now, I don't know how I keep doing it with these segues, but boy, oh boy, I'm killing it. Just like BioWare killed Dragon Age. Am I right, gamers? Up top. Dragon Age Veilguard is the next game. Boy, oh boy. This was a hot topic one, man. Oh, man. Everybody online seemed like they fucking despised this game. A lot of controversy. I think most controversial game of the year. I didn't think anything could top the controversy with Hellblade 2 or with Concord. But I think, or Stellar Blade, or Star Wars Outlaws. There were some controversial games this year. But I think Dragon Age Veilguard really was the creme de la creme. It was the most controversial game of the year for sure, 2024. Playing this game on stream, it was definitely a form of cock and ball torture, I think. It was pain. It was pain to play this game on stream. The number of people that came in, I mean, we're talking, I'm not even being dramatic here, tens of thousands of people coming into the chat. DEI, gay, Gabe, average Kamala voter, Gabe. You look like the type of guy that would play the game. You'd probably love this game. Gay, you're trans, non-binary. Oh my God, dude. It was everything under the sun. But even with all of that, I didn't think Veilguard was as bad as people thought. I think Dragon Age Veilguard is it's a lot like Fallout 4 to me. It's a really bad Dragon Age game. Just like Fallout 4, I think, is a really bad Fallout game. But as an action-adventure game, I actually thought Veilguard was not that bad. I really, really enjoyed the combat of the game. The combat carried Veilguard for me. I had so much fun making my, like, Captain America, Undead Lich Captain America build, basically, where I just maxed out on the number of shield bounces that I could do. Each time my shield bounced between enemies, it got exponentially more damage, and it extended any status effects that they had on them. So I would just infect everybody with status effects. I'd bounce my shield around everyone, see giant, massive numbers. All the status effects would be proccing, and add a bunch of stacks, and I just had a great amount of time, a great amount of fun spending time in crafting the build and with the build and finding the gear. And is the writing bad? Yeah. Yeah, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. The writing is oftentimes quite bad. It's Marvel movie writing is what it is. I forgot to turn off alerts. I forgot to turn off alerts. Yo, thank you.
Look into Dynasty Warriors
Oh shit.
coming out on the 16th.
Thank you for the super chat. I forgot to turn off the alerts. Thank you. I will read chat and talk to everybody in chat at the end of the stream. I totally forgot to turn off alerts. That's my bad. We're almost at the end, I swear. Thank you for the super chat though, dude. Very nice. But yeah, Veilguard, it's Marvel movie writing, man. And some people love Marvel movie. This is what I said in the review. Some people love Marvel movies. Some people hate Marvel movies. And some people just don't want their Dragon Age to be Marvel movies. And I understand each of those people. For me, I didn't really care. I didn't really mind it because I was having so much fun with the actual gameplay. I didn't really mind it. But a lot of people, they play BioWare games and they've played Dragon Age games for the story. I know, kind of crazy. And the dialogue and the writing and the characters. And so if you're one of those people, which was a lot of those people, and you're going into Veilguard, it is naturally going to be very disappointing because of the massive step down in terms of writing quality, in terms of the voice acting, honestly, in terms of even just the overall story. It's a pretty big step down. It's modern BioWare, you know? But for me, I was never into Dragon Age. I never played a single Dragon Age game. I played through 1 through 3 up to the release of Veilguard, and I had a good enough time with them, but I didn't have any nostalgia tied to them or anything like that. And I also had a feeling from everything that I saw of Veilguard that it wasn't going to be as good. And so I kind of approached Veilguard just like I did with Mass Effect Andromeda, where I went, yeah, it's probably not going to be very good, you know? And much like Mass Effect Andromeda, it wasn't very good, but the gameplay was very good. And so that was kind of my overall thoughts on Veilguard. I gave the game a 7 out of 10. I said it's actually good, and a lot of people did not like that. That was that video got a lot of hate. I think it's probably my most disliked video of all time. I think it's like a 20% like to dislike ratio. It's criminally disliked. Of course, let's be honest, almost none of those people actually watch the video. I can see the average view duration, and it's like 18 seconds or something, like criminally low. So like none of them watched the video, but obviously they saw the title and the thumbnail and they just clicked on it and disliked and left a hate comment. But that's fine, you know, to each their own. But yeah, I still stand by that. I think that the game for me was overall enjoyable, and it overall was a good game. I liked some of the characters. I really liked Lucanus. I liked Ballara. I really liked Davrin. I liked Asan. I liked Manfred. I liked Necromancer, Zesty Necromancer. I'm trying to remember his name. I'm very bad with names. It's actually a miracle I even remembered that many names. I don't remember his name. But the Necromancer guy, I liked a lot of the characters. I thought Solus was very, very good. Every time he was on the screen, I thought he was great. So yeah, I enjoyed enough of Dragon Age Veilguard, but boy, oh boy, that was an unpopular take. People hated Veilguard, but hey, like I always say, man, I'm just going to go into a game. I'm going to try and come in as unbiased as possible. I'm going to play a game, and I'm just going to give you guys my honest take. I'm not going to, you know, coattail or bend the knee to whatever the majority of people think. If the majority of people love Wukong, I'm still going to say I wasn't the biggest fan of Wukong. Same with Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and now with Dragon Age Veilguard, but on the opposite end of the spectrum where I actually enjoyed it, despite a lot of people out there really hating it. You know, you either like that or you don't like that about me, but I'm always going to be honest with you guys. I don't really believe in, you know, lying to you guys or doing stuff to get extra views or something like that, because at the end of the day, this is just a fucking hobby for me, and I'm just here to tell you my personal impressions and enjoyment of a game. It's really that simple. So that's what I did with Veilguard. That's what I did with Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. That's what I did with you know, Flintlock. That's what I've done with all these games, and sometimes it gets me hate, but it is what it is. I'm not gonna ever bend the knee. So next game, talking about, man, what a complicated one. S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2 Heart of Chornobyl. Oh man, dude, this is a hard one. This is such a hard one, because when S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2 is good, man, it's just everything that I wanted out of a modern S.T.A.L.K.E.R game. But man, is it bad so much more often than it's good. And I haven't played, you know, since I did the last stream, which was, you know, probably like a month and a half, maybe approaching 2 months ago. So it's been a little while. Don't get me wrong. I have no doubt that they're still patching the game and fixing the game, but holy fuck, this game was just a buggy mess on release, dude. Just a unacceptably buggy mess. And then the more info that came out about S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2, the more and more it made it hard to be on these guys' side. I mean, it came out that they put the review embargo for the day of release, and they forbid any YouTubers or reviewers for talking about the game or the quality of the game or the performance of the game or the bugs in the game until the day of release, just so that they could, you know, have people not cancel their pre-orders. Ooh, that's a bad look. That's a really bad look, man. That's not good. Like, you compare that to what, like, a confident dev studio's doing. Like, for example, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. That comes out on the 4th of February. They just sent out copies a month ahead of time for reviewers to play the game. And I guarantee you they're going to have the review embargo probably a week or 4 days ahead of time. You know what that means? It means Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is probably going to be a fucking banger. It means they're very confident in the product, and they're fine with reviewers talking about it and playing it early. S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2 is the exact opposite. They knew the state of the game. They knew the game was terribly buggy. They knew it was very unoptimized. They knew that they would have to patch the shit out of it. They knew that quests literally didn't work, and they didn't want reviewers to talk about it. And on top of that, stuff like their... I don't remember the exact word for it, but their entire AI system that controls all the events that happen in the open world and stuff like that literally just doesn't work. It still doesn't work. It was on their Steam page. It was one of their main selling points for the game, and they didn't have it. And they actually were forced to take it off of their Steam page because it's not in the game, and it is false advertising. So there's unfortunately some shitty stuff going around, you know, S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2. But like I said, man, when the game is good, it is just fantastic. It is so much fun just exploring the zone and just getting the gear upgrades, just finding secrets and artifacts and exploring anomalies. Like, it is so good when it's good. And overall, I just think S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2 is going to be a great time when it's done. And when modders have probably also done shit to it, after they've added all the DLC, I think it's going to be most definitely be one of those games where you come back in probably a couple years. Like, I'll probably come back to the game in a year, maybe year and a half to 2 years. Once the mods are out and once all the DLC is out, and I have no doubt I will absolutely love S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2. But I got to say, putting 85 hours in, really within like a couple weeks of the launch, I no life this game when it came out. Just very, very disappointed in the in the quality of the release. It was just not ready. It was an early access game, and they sold it as a full price game. And if they were just honest and they said, hey, by the way, this is going to be an early access release, I would have been totally fine with it. I would have thought that was completely fine, but that's not what they did, right? They released it as a full price finished product, and it was anything but finished. So next, we're coming up on the tail end of the year, coming into December. Marvel Rivals. Yeah, this is everything Concord wish it was. Absolutely fantastic character designs. Super hot. Like, let's be honest, everyone is so hot. Just even Moon Knight's making me pop a semi-chub, brother. Everyone is so hot in this game, and you can't even see a lick of skin on that guy, but Jesus, they just made everyone so goddamn hot. And now they got Invisible Woman coming out in like 40 minutes, actually. Invisible Woman's coming out, and she is just caked up, brother. Like, Jessica Alba has nothing on her. This is the new definitive fucking Wonder Woman. Not Wonder Woman, Invisible Woman. Holy God. And then they got this evil skin for Jesus Christ. But even gooning aside, all the gooner bait aside, even if all the characters were ugly and they had Concord designs, the actual gameplay here is just really fucking fun. It's really good. It does not have that Concord feel where I play a character and I go, oh yeah, this is McCree, you know, or this is Widowmaker. Okay, it does have like Black Widow is basically Widowmaker, but for the most part, like, all the characters actually feel like their own thing. And I think that's awesome, man. I think that they've done a great job of delivering, you know, these superhero characters into the game. They have a very interesting balance philosophy, which is nothing's balanced. And it turns out, when everything's broken, nothing will be. It's some sort of like weird Incredibles alternate universe or something where if every character is just horseshit and broken and OP, then it's balanced in a weird way. And so instead of like really trying to like get the balance numbers right and like enforce a meta or something like that, don't get me wrong, some characters are definitely too strong, hella Hawkeye type of shit, and some characters are definitely too weak, like Widow. But for the most part, characters are just in a pretty good spot. The game is fun. The fully destructible environment is like, it's give and take. Sometimes it's really cool. Like, sometimes it's like, oh, this person's walking away. I attack this wall. It breaks a hole in the wall, and then I shoot a hole through. I shoot through the hole in the wall that I just created, and I hit him with the last hit, and I kill him, and it's super cool. And then other times it's like, oh, the entire building is falling on my fucking face, and I'm just in the rubble, just you know, trying to crawl my way out. So it's kind of, you know, it's hit or miss. But the team ups are very, very cool. I think it's probably one of the coolest things in Marvel Rivals is that you have those team ups, and it can make some characters that are kind of ass or not that good really, really good. I think Iron Man is probably the best example of that, where it's like Iron Man normally, I wouldn't say he's ass, but he's definitely not that good. And then you throw a goddamn Hulk on the team, you get that gamma radiation, and you get the green beam, dude. Holy hell, the green beam. I've been having nightmares about that fucking thing following me down the hallway as I'm running away. No, please, Iron Man, please. oh, dude, the green beam is 240 DPS of just pure terror, right? And that's kind of the cool thing about the team-ups, is that you can have these characters that really aren't that good on their own, or maybe they're just like okay on their own, but then you pair them up with someone that's like, wait a sec, this is kind of stinky. And I really like that. I think it's super cool. Of course, now my philosophy with all of these like competitive games is that I don't really give a fuck about my rank or where I stand amongst the people. You know, I used to be a very hyper competitive person, grinding in all the competitive games to get rank 1. But now that I'm an old withered man, I don't really give a shit anymore. I just play these games for fun. So I'm having a great time. I don't know what the turbo dweebs that are super hyper competitive and they're going for, I'm going for one above all. I'm going to be the rank 1 Wolverine or whatever. I don't know what they really think about the game. But for me, as a filthy casual that thinks the game is just fun and I play with the boys, yeah, it's great. I think it's better than Overwatch even, and I really enjoy it. And it's got mod support. Yeah. So you know what that means. All those hot chicks in the game, I could turn them into JoJo characters. Yeah. My Hela does look like Dio. Oh yeah. My Iron Fist, he does look like fucking Star Platinum. And when he does his ult, it doesn't go Honchio, Chonchayo. It goes fucking and it's fucking awesome. I love it. It's great. And I know some people will go, you're playing a Marvel game, but you don't want the characters to be Marvel heroes? Shut up. Shut up. Let me have my fun. Okay? Go read a comic book or something. Jesus Christ. The final game that came out this year is Indiana Jones. And, you know, I honestly thought this game was going to be fat ass. I'm not going to lie. I thought this game was going to be terrible. And it wasn't. It actually wasn't. It was definitely a case of like, yay, we have Uncharted or Tomb Raider at home. It definitely was not as good as Tomb Raider games or Uncharted. But I got to say, man, it was actually pretty good. It wasn't bad at all. It was pretty fun. I liked punching the shit out of Nazis. I liked throwing Nazis off of high platforms and watching their ragdoll, bodies hit things on the way down. I liked whipping the shit out of dudes. Don't take that out of context. And yeah, overall, I thought the game was pretty good. I didn't think it was fantastic or anything like that. And I did think that the combat started to get a little bit repetitive as you went through the motions. But overall, as somebody that like has no affiliation with Indiana Jones, I've never seen an Indiana Jones movie. I know, crazy. What about Temple of the Crystal Monkey or whatever? I haven't seen any of them. Sorry. I don't watch a lot of TV shows or movies. I play video games. So as somebody that has no affiliation at all with Indiana Jones, I have no feelings at all towards it. No allegiance, no nostalgia. I don't know how true to the character it is or anything, but it was fun. And he sounded like Harrison Ford. Troy Baker did a great impression. Sounded like Harrison Ford a lot of the time. So overall, yeah, I really, really enjoyed the game. So I think I probably gave it like a 7. I think it's probably like a 7.5. Like thinking back on it, there's definitely some slow points and the shooting is terrible. I shouldn't have to shoot a dude 5 times in the head to kill him. That's silly. But overall, I actually did enjoy Indiana Jones more than I thought. I thought it was literally going to be like a 3 out of 10. I thought it was going to be terrible. And it ended up being better than I thought. Definitely not like a 9 out of 10 or 10 out of 10 like I saw some review outlets giving it, but it was a good time for sure. And that is all of the 2024 big releases that I played. This was an hour and 45 minutes almost of yapping about game releases. And overall, what do I have to say about 2024? I think It really sucks to see people so cynical about gaming. People online are just so cynical, man. They're like, oh, good games are dead. Gaming's terrible now. It's full of... Back in my day, we didn't have microtransactions in our titles. We had finished games. And, oh, no good games come out. Listen here, Grandpa. Okay, I'm probably older than you. Okay, 28-year-old fucking gray hair old man here, balding, falling apart, throwing out my hip every morning. I sleep wrong. There's a lot of good games. We just went through a shit ton of good games, right? Just in this hour and 45 minutes, just this year. There's so many good games, so many great games, and even many amazing games that come out every single year. 2024 was no exception here. Tons of just great titles like Persona 3 Reload, Helldivers 2, Last Epoch, for a lot of people, Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth, Dragon's Dogma 2, Rise of the Ronin, Stellar Blade, Shadow of the Erdtree DLC, Wukong for a lot of people, Astro Bot, Space Marines 2, Silent Hill 2, Metaphor ReFantazio, A Quiet Place, Stalker 2 for a lot of people, Indiana Jones. There's so many good games, man. They came out this year. They come out every single year. And you just have to kind of probably open up your horizons a little bit. Expand your horizons. And let me tell you, I understand it can be scary at times. Like for me, I never play platformers. But I played Astro Bot. And I gotta say, man, I'm so happy I opened my mind and expanded that horizon because Astro Bot was some of the most fun I've had gaming in a real long time. It was just so much fun. Such a good game. And that shit happens all the time. You kind of, you know, I used to hate anime, weeb, horseshit games until I played Persona 5. And I was like, wait. It still might be a little cringe. And the community is definitely cringe. But they're kind of cooking. This is a good fucking video game. So, you know, great things can happen if you expand your horizons just past fucking Call of Duty. Because a lot of the people I talk to that say, oh, gaming is in a terrible spot. I'm like, oh, really? What'd you play this year? Oh, Call of Duty. Oh, okay. What else? Oh, Marvel Rivals. It's like, bruh. Maybe at least try to play some good shit. Come on, Marvel Rivals is good, but you know what I mean, you know? Lots of good games this year. For me, once again, my game of the year for 2024, you can hear the soundtrack playing right now. Stellar Blade. Just really, really surprised me. And I am super excited to replay it once it comes to PC. I just had a great time with this game, man. Just complete surprise for me. Just thought it was going to be Gooner bait. All the controversies about big boobies, big booties, upskirt shots and shit. Yeah, you know, I wouldn't want to be playing it when my mom walks in. That's fair. That's valid. But damn, me and my dad will be playing it together. You know what I'm saying? He'd be like, hell yeah, brother. This is a fucking video game. This is what the women should look like in the games these days. Hell yeah. So, you know, it's great. It was really, really fun. I enjoyed it a lot. But yeah. That's going to do it for the podcast. For the video version, I'm going to end it off here. For the people in the stream, I'm going to go ahead and take a look at the chat finally and see what people are thinking about the games of the year and everything. But thanks for watching the video version. Have a fantastic rest of your day, and I'll see you guys in the next video or stream rating. Bye-bye.